Country prepares to move to lockdown level 3. I'm joined via Skype by Minister in the Presidency, Jackson Mthembu. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. We know that the World Health Organization has certain instances where they want countries to ease or relax lockdown regulations. As South Africa, with our cases increasing, we haven't met those World Health Organization requirements, yet we're still moving to level 3. Why?
Of course, the ministers will be able to explain the why tomorrow. That's why we're here. We are not here to give details on why we'll be going to level 3. There are ministers that will be doing so tomorrow. As you know, the minister who's leading us in the regulations arena is Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So she'll be speaking to us at 2 o'clock tomorrow. And thereafter, around 4 o'clock tomorrow, we'll then have the ministers in the economic cluster that will speak to us what level 4 means for the economic cluster of ministers. Then on Friday morning, we will have the social cluster inclusive of the Minister of Health, who will be able to go into details on the question that you are raising now. And after that, in the afternoon of Friday, we will have the cluster on JCPS, which is the cluster including the Minister of Police, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Home Affairs, and the Minister of DERCO. So all I'm here to do is just to explain why we have delayed in speaking to South Africans on our move to level 3. One of the reasons of our delay was, as you know, the President yesterday announced that another sector that will be allowed to operate under level 3 is the church sector. So that necessitated that the Minister of COGTA, Minister Dlamini Zuma, should then include the church and religious groupings in the regulations. That's the reason for the delay. But second part to the delay was that, as you will know, there are many hotspots that we are dealing with in the country that are infected by coronavirus. So also you need different regulations that are directed and are targeting those hotspots. So therefore, because of all this work that needed to be done between yesterday and today, we will then only have the ministers speaking to South Africa tomorrow and on Friday. That's the reason why I'm here.
Okay, then I'd like to ask you, we understand that it's an unprecedented time dealing with a global pandemic with the many moving parts that are there. Is government conducting themselves in the correct manner? Because what happens when there are delays, as you've just explained, is that there's confusion that starts to come, and there's also a sense of mixed messaging and waiting for answers. And when answers are being waited for, in those gaps, misinformation can come in, panic can come in. Are you handling the communications in the best way possible?
Yeah, definitely. That's why we are here. As you will know, we had said Minister Dlamini Zuma will be speaking to the media today at 12:30. But because of all these new areas of work that she needs to include in the regulations, other new areas that will be opened up, including the churches, and new regulations that must apply to hotspots areas, she is unable to then address the media today. That's why we're here. We have made ourselves available to explain why the delay, so that we keep South Africans informed, so that we don't tell South Africans that we have delayed the ministers coming to brief you, but we don't explain what has occasioned the delay. So we think that we are doing the best we can under the circumstances. And as you have said, it's quite a very dicey environment. and all of us as a country, if there is one area that we are trying to, the area called COVID-19. And we are not alone. We are working with other social partners, the churches, the business community, the labor sector, the community sector. Again, what has also occasioned this is because, as you will also know, the president met with the churches recently. And because of his meeting with the churches, that's why the president made the pronouncement he made yesterday, last night, in relation to including our fraternal churches in the level 3 opening up. So therefore, that necessitated that the regulations that kick in level 3 must also include the churches. And again, as I've said, the hotspots. So we think that we have kept South Africa informed through ministers at every level of our lockdown levels, including level 3, as we will do tomorrow. Level 3, by the way, starts on the 1st.
Yeah, so
but we would have spoken to South Africans.
So my question, perhaps I didn't phrase it properly, was about the way that the information comes out. So if you know that because you're going to make a certain announcement, regulations will need to change, and therefore you're going to need to keep the public informed about that, would it not be better to inform the public at one go when regulations are published after consultation has been made? So there isn't this thing that happens where people say, no, the president is saying one thing, and then different ministers will come out and say different things. That confuses the message sometimes, and then it also leads people to believe that there's a sense of people may not know exactly what they're doing and that there's different fights going on in the background.
Well, I think I've understood your question very well. That's why I'm here. We had said to South Africa, our ministers will be putting the regulations in the public domain today, through your various instruments, through your various platforms, television, radio, and other platforms. But we are saying because of the developments, the president meeting with the churches and then including the churches last night, at level 3, even before level 3, that's what the ministers will explain, that the churches are now allowed to operate as the president has said. We therefore needed to craft regulations that allow the churches to operate. Now, that's why we are here to explain that has occasioned the delay of the minister coming to the public with the regulations, because we needed to include those regulations that allow the churches to operate, so that we are in keeping with the pronouncements that have been made by the president in terms of our regulations. If we don't do that, again, we will be faulted for not following up on what the president has said. So the ministers are following up on what the president has said by including the churches in the regulations. As they come tomorrow, they would have included the churches, how they will open, what are the health measures that they need to adhere to, but again, how many people can they have in their churches, etc., etc. All that will be included in the regulations. So we agree with you, there is no mixed messaging. The president has said the churches are opening. Indeed, our job as ministers is to say how, through regulations. That will come in tomorrow afternoon through the mouth of Minister Dlamini Zuma, Minister Lamula, and Minister Patel.
Thank you so much for your time, Minister. And the Presidency Jackson Mthembu joining us via Skype. Arabile Gumede standing by with more news for you on Point.